Let's now take a look at the flow of Buddhism from India. King Ashoka was an Indian emperor of the Maurya dynasty who ruled over most of the Indian subcontinent from circa 268 to 232 BC. In the 8th year of his reign, he conquered the Kalinga region. The great death toll of his victory caused Ashoka to lament the cost of his victory. According to the edicts of Ashoka, carved into rock, 100,000 men and animals were killed in action. Many times that number perished, and 150 men and animals were carried away from Kalinga as captives. In repentance for these sufferings, Ashoka devoted himself to the practice and propagation of the Dharma. He reflected that the death and deportation as a result of the conquest of the country was painful and deplorable. According to his edicts during the 8th and 9th years of his reign, he made a pilgrimage to the Bodhi tree and started propagating the Dharma. He also started activities in social welfare. These included the establishment of medical treatment facilities for humans and animals. He also started plantations of medicinal herbs, digging wells, and tree planting along the roads. The Sri Lankan tradition suggests that the Buddhist monk Moggaliputta-Tissa, who was patronized by Ashoka, sent out 9 Buddhist missions to spread the Dharma to the border areas in circa 250 BC. Each mission had 5 monks and an elder. Ashoka's son, Mahinda, was sent to Sri Lanka. Next, with help from Moggaliputta-Tissa, Ashoka sent Buddhist missionaries to distant regions such as Kashmir, Gandhara, the Himalayas, Greece, Burma or Myanmar, Thailand and Sri Lanka. There was also a mission headed by Ashoka's daughter, Sanghamitta, to Sri Lanka. She established an order of nuns there. Sarvastivada or Theravada Buddhism was a type that went to Sri Lanka and from there to Myanmar, Thailand and Cambodia. Another form of Buddhism went north to Kashmir called the Sarvastivadins, a non-Mahayana group who broke from the Theravada, where it remained for another 10 centuries. The Sarvastivadins later influenced the development of Mahayana Buddhism. After Alexander the Great conquered Persia in 331 BC, he continued into Central Asia. Part of his army chose to settle around Gandhara. Later in their descendants became Greek Buddhists. This connection between the Hellenistic culture and Buddhism lasted over 800 years in Central Asia. From the 4th century BC to the 5th century AD, these Greco-Buddhists developed sculptures of the Buddha and influenced the development of particularly Mahayana Buddhism. Buddhism prospered under the Indo-Greek kings. It was the Greek monks at the time of Ashoka who took an active role in spreading Buddhism into Europe. Later, the Indo-Greek king Milinda in Pali or Menander in Sanskrit, in the 1st century had a dialogue with a monk called Nagasena. He asked many difficult questions that only Nagasena could answer quite clearly. They had a dialogue that lasted 3 days. After this, the king decided to become a Buddhist. Later came the Kushan Empire, based in Gandhara. It stretched from Bactria to Turfan in the Tarim Basin down to Pataliputra in the Ganges. It gave protection and safety to traders along the Silk Road. The Greco-Buddhist cultures flourished. Kanishka the Great was the emperor of the Kushan Empire in the 2nd century AD. His patronage of Buddhism helped to develop the transmission of Mahayana Buddhism along the Silk Road from Gandhara into China. This was the time of the Buddhist sculptors with the Greek influence, who wanted to portray the Buddha in a human form. Buddhism spread from China to Korea in the 4th century AD. then from Korea to Japan in the 6th century AD. Buddhism reached its peak during the Tang dynasty. After this, there were persecutions in China, and some schools of Buddhism were lost. Some of these schools were transplanted to Japan.